Hello, digital art people. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to measure and get started with this next project called a texture pattern design. But first, let's define what textures are. They are actually surface designs which support the illusion of a real substance or a present invented in a composition. There's two types of textures. There's actual texture that refers to the surface illusion of, say, wood, water, glass, clouds, fabric, metal, and so on. Visual textures, they're usually linear with shapes, colors, and patterns that are invented for the piece of artwork that is being made. And then you'll be able to make some patterns in this as well. And patterns basically are just simply shapes or lines that repeat. So if you look at the student sample I have in front of you, at the top part of the project, the student, she has 24 boxes. They measure 1.5 by 1.5 inches. And in each box, she came up with a texture or pattern. And then after that, after she came up with the 24, in the bottom, there's this design, this picture she did. It's actually an upside down kind of hanging person like a bat. And she used all of the different textures and patterns in that. So there's two parts to this project. The first part is going to be this top part with the different boxes that you measure out and fill them in with textures and patterns. Then in the bottom is the second part. So each part's worth 50 points. The bottom part, you take everything you've already come up with and you're going to design a picture of some kind. You can do kind of an abstract creature, you can do a cityscape, but have it be a picture of something, okay? And so that's the creative part, is that bottom section. But to get you started, what I'm going to do is show you how I start with the measuring part of this. Now, if you're at home, you can tape this down to a table surface so your paper doesn't move. What I'm using is called a drafting tape, and I bought red, so it stands out, it's easier to see. But drafting tape usually looks like masking tape, but it's less tacky, less likely to rip the paper. If you don't have any and you want to, you still use tape to hold your paper down, what you can do is you take the tape and you actually can put it like on your skin a little bit, push it down, and it absorbs some of the oils in the skin, so it's less likely to rip the paper. You don't have to tape the paper down, but I just like to do that. So I am also using a drawing board and a T-square to make sure everything is straight. So I'm lining these objects up and I'm going to tape my paper down. Actually, I'm going to rotate this a little bit for you, those of you at home, so you can kind of see this, how I'm starting. Okay. So move this over so we can see that. There we go. Okay. And how this is going to work is I am going to measure from the edge of my paper a 1/2 inch. And this is just going to be a space here, like a margin, because generally in any kind of design industry, you don't have artwork go to the edge of the paper. You almost have kind of like this margin that goes all the way around. It kind of acts like a frame, and it makes the artwork look a little more professional looking. So I've got this margin that no artwork will go in, but then I'm going to measure 1.5 inches for the width of the box. So you can slide your ruler over. I usually leave them at the edge of the paper, but just to show you what 1.5 inches looks like. So I measure over the whole inch and then a 1/2 inch. So a whole 1.5 inches, that's how wide it is. Then I want a 1/2 inch space between each box. And then I do the same thing. I measure 1.5 inches, 1/2 inch, and I do this all the way across my paper. Okay, so when you get all the way over after doing all of this, okay, and I'll keep sliding 1.5 inches, 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches, 1/2 inch, keep sliding. You're gonna have a little bit extra, and you should be using 12 by 18 inch paper to do this. If you don't have it, email me, call me here at the school, we'll arrange for you to get some. So now, when I get to the end of my paper, if you look, I have my last box. Well, what I'm gonna do is I want a 1/2 inch space again, and it'll be right there. So this is all gonna be extra space, but if I count them up going across, I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boxes, enough for 8 going across this way. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna draw straight lines. Now, because I have a T-square, it looks like this, because it's shaped like a T, I can put this on the edge of my drawing board, and I can go through my lines rather quickly. Now, if you don't have a T-square, which probably most of you do not, I would measure all these little tick marks, as I call them, 3 times. So you make sure you have straight lines. You do not want to have crooked lines doing this. So what I mean by that, so the T-square, you can see I'm flying through this. But if I go back to the edge of my paper, so I have 1 row of little tick marks, I can come back over here, do the same thing, measure a 1/2 inch, then measure over 1.5 inches, 1/2 inch, 1.5 inches, 1/2 inch, and I do that all the way across again, and then I'll do it a 3rd time. And 1.5 inches, 1/2 inch. So what you can do if you're doing it like that with the 3 tick marks, you're ensuring that your lines are straight, because what I do is I take that straight edge and I line it up. Look at those 3 tick marks. Now I'm not going to do the whole paper, because remember I'm doing a drawing at the bottom, so I'm only going to do about halfway down. Okay, so you can kind of start seeing my lines being formed there. And I do this all the way across. Now, if you're a little unsure, take your time. If you're at home doing this, you don't have to rush through it. Maybe don't press so hard with a pencil, so you can erase your lines if you need to. Now, the next step is I'm gonna measure from the top of the paper. I'm gonna grab a different ruler here. And I'm gonna do a 1/2 inch space from the top. Now, yes, I have the 8 inch mark here, but I'm just using whole numbers. So I come down here, that's a 1/2 inch space. I measure down another 1.5 inches, which is there, 1/2 inch space, 1.5 inches, 1/2 inch space. So I've got 1 box there, 1 box there, and then again, I'm gonna come down 1.5 inches, right about there. Now I don't need to put another space on that one. But same thing with the 3 tick marks. There we go. So what I'm going to do, so I don't have as much erasing, which I'm always trying to make my life a little bit better and easier. Less erasing, less erasing. So I'm only drawing where the boxes are actually going to go. I could draw all the way through, like so, but then I'm going to have some erasing to do. So again, I'm going to go back, try to be a little more efficient, and keep going. And so on and so forth. Okay, so if you look, you can see now the forming of the boxes, but these areas I'm going to have to erase so the boxes are a lot clearer. Okay, so you can kind of see how I'm doing that. Now, I don't care in which order you work. If you're right-handed versus left-handed, you may have a preference, but in each one of these boxes, I'm going to sketch out some textures and patterns. So I can go and start with my pencil, and let's say I want to make something that looks like, you know, rings in a tree. I'm just going to go randomly with this box. And I can take my pencil, plan it out, do some, because trees are kind of organic, there's no perfect shapes in that. This, and you can get ideas from nature. Seashells, look around your yard if you're looking for some ideas. Look around your house for some ideas too. But then you can go with real geometric kind of looking patterns also. So if you want to do something that looks like a little checkerboard in here, you could. If you want to do something that looks like maybe bricks, you know, something, I like bricks and masonry kind of work, and they skip around kind of like this. So I'm going roughly with my pencil right now. But one of the things that I do is I kind of like will shade where the mortar would go and make it look a little more or like natural looking. I don't want it to be so geometric. I'll do some other geometric patterns. You know, so sometimes you might see little marks on the stone too. But you're going to have to remember that after you do the pencil, you're gonna have to go over everything with the black ink pen again. Sharpies are okay, but these fine tip markers with that nice felt tip, that works a little bit better. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna, and you can sketch and draw with these. Just go through, kind of sketchy with the black. Maybe I'll stipple a little, add some stuff to get some texture going on there. And then when I'm all done, I can erase some of the pencil lines. So it gives it kind of like a nice little sketchy feeling. Now the tree rings, because I want that to look a little organic, I might add, you know, maybe I'll go over these pencil lines in a heavy way, but then go back in and maybe add some sketchy kind of lines a little bit so it looks a little more organic in its texture. And I go through and do all of that. You could do a spider web, you know, shingles on a roof if you want to. Maybe even like if you think of like the texture on somebody's chapped lips. You know, so I could sketch out maybe a portion of lips over here. I'm drawing sideways, so hopefully this will come out okay. I can't fit the whole mouth on there, but you get the idea. And there's usually lines that come up, and I'm just, again, sketching them out. When you get old, you get wrinkles up here. So you can do something like that. If you want to do, you know, somebody's pupil and what that would look like, that's fine. Just your ideas are limitless really here. So another suggestion too, I'm going to show you this one here. This is one in progress. If you look, like this one, this is inspired by candy corn. Here's another, there's a stone one that's I've done. This is a ancient Greek meandering pattern, but notice though the boxes are not outlined. So I don't want you to outline the boxes. Use the pencil outline as a guide, but it just looks a lot cleaner and crisper in this kind of format. So when you look down here at this one, see how it's all taped off? So that actually will help you a little bit, so it keeps it clean and neat. So when I peel this tape up, this is drafting tape, I'll have nice clean edges here. If you don't want to use the tape, another option you could do, if I come over here, I'm going to hold a ruler. And let's say I just want to do something with kind of like sketchy lines that create a texture. And notice I'm holding the ruler on this side so that they have a nice crisp edge when I lift this off. So right there, it's nice and crisp. I come over to the other side of the square, I can do the same thing. And this works, I mean, I use this little tip and trick all the time to keep my lines nice and straight. So it keeps it very, very clean and crisp along those edges. So again, I'll have the measurements in Blackboard for you to look at as a reference. You can slow down the video and watch how I've measured that. But do all those measurements first. Let me see if I can, here's, it's probably a little tough for you to see. Totally clear. Here's another student sample, one of a student. Now if you look, this student, she did start to outline. She outlined the first two and then remembered, oops, I'm not supposed to outline. So the ones that are not outlined, they look a lot better. It's just clean. Here's a spider web looking one here. Ocean waves if you want. Whatever you can come up with, be super, super creative with this. Again, if you have any questions, send me an email. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.